one, a combination of several things, and he formulated the Toyota production system that is even now is a reference. I will briefly touch upon the Toyota production system in little more detail as we progress. The other person is also very important. There was a perception, not now, once people used to think quality comes with the cost. If you want quality, you invest. But it is not. Quality comes with a cost, but the quality doesn't come by spending too much of a cost. It's not acceptable. It has to come by optimally spending. So his philosophy on quality is not free. Is again very famous in the quality circles. I just want to throw some light on some of the quality gurus, and you can do your own research on that. But now I want to come back to the topic. The topic is how today the strategic quality is enabling organizations to gain the competitiveness. So as I mentioned, competitiveness by understanding what gives them the competitive edge. It is not one factor which gives them the competitive edge. So for Toyota, the example which I gave, so they had to produce more cars in a shorter time and with minimal inventory. That was their success factor which they identified at that time. So that is why they formulated the Toyota production system. Today, for different industries, it is very important for the organizations to identify what those success factors are which gives them the competitive edge. When they identify the factors which give them the competitive edge, then that becomes the foundation for framing their quality structure. So the quality framework for organization, in my view and in my experience, has to be customized. If you try to adopt a standard framework which is working fine in one organization, if you try to copy, it may not work. It is a combination of the factors and the culture in the organization and the management focus, all of that. I try to put together from my experience what I've seen in the past years, what are those factors which are giving them the edge in terms of building the competitiveness. And I try to put the current situation. I'm not saying factor 10 years before, 20 years before. There are, if you read some of the books written by the quality gurus in the previous page, you can go through the history. But I want to briefly touch upon some of the factors which are today. As I mentioned, quality is not just conformance to specification, which used to be a very commonly stated definition in various textbooks. It is taken for granted now. If you say my product or service is conforming to the specification, that's not going to give me the competitive edge. The operational efficiency lever, that's more to do with the conformance to specification. When I am saying conformance to specification, I also talk about the productivity. I'll take few industries and try to explain these factors to you. Let's take the automobile industry. I'll give one example from automotive industry and one example from a service industry. Let's take first the automotive industry. In automotive industry, what operational efficiencies give them the edge? Obviously, the quality. When we talk about quality, we don't talk about 1% error, 2% error. We talk about defects per million, which means one error in a million, or one parts go defective or defect in a million. To that extent, we today talk about the error. The products and the manufacturing processes have improved to the extent that the error rates today in the automotive industry in this supply chain has come down very dramatically. The other operational efficiency is very important. So how much I produce in an hour? Say, those are the days I remember when I started my career. I started my career in a foundry, in a company called Rani Engine Works. So those times, the factories used to run on production norms. Even today, some of them are running on production norms, but it was very prevalent at that time. So companies get into agreement, production agreements. Every day, as the operator uh, parts or components, and they go by that. If they produce more, they expect an incentive, or if they produce in 5 hours, they go and take a rest. But those concepts have changed today. Today, people talk about productivity. If I produce 50 is my target. If I produce 50 today, I set a target to myself. Can I go 60, 70, 80? That is productivity. Production target to productivity, there is a huge difference. And there are other parameters like setup. A setup time reduction looks very simple, but in a manufacturing, particularly in automotive, that is very, very huge lever for bringing in the operational efficiency. Take a press. For me to change over a press from one die to other, it takes several hours. It used to. Today, there are concepts like single minute exchange of dies where people change it in just a few minutes. So these are some of the factors which brings in operational efficiency. I give another example of reliability. So today I buy a car. Here the reliability is related to the design. I have to have a design and have to have a process design, thereby my components last longer. So the brake of my car works perfectly fine throughout the life of my car, even after 10 years. I can't say after 10 years my brakes will not work, my steering will not work. The reliability is very important for my car. As I said, the same thing may not hold good for other product. Take example of a mobile. I don't expect my mobile to last 10 years. The reliability me, the innovation in mobile is more important. I expect more features, more functionalities, uh, which I can enjoy. That's what I look at in the mobile, and hence, the expectations from a product differs completely from the customer perspective and from the stakeholders perspective very differently between products. Take example of a bank. Today, what I expect in a bank as a customer, what I expect as a customer in a bank is my experience. When I go and want to open my savings bank account, it used to take several days. In fact, I did some consulting projects with some of the banks, even some multinational banks, to open a this technology enabled process which allows you to complete the entire process in the same day across the table. You get your account opened and you can start doing the transaction. And as a customer, I don't want to visit branch. I want to do everything on my own, sitting at home, I want to do everything on my mobile. So I want technology, more technology, mobility, which enables me to do a digital transaction rather than visiting the bank. So that is the expectation for a banking industry. Even for bank, if I visit a bank, it is a cost. But if I do a transaction, if I do a e-payment, that's a lesser expensive transaction than doing the payment in the bank. So for a bank also, that is very important. Look at how the process is designed digitally than doing the transaction in the bank. Uh, and very importantly, this is very important. The quality used to be just the cost or the operational efficiency more from a product perspective. That used to be the thought process. But today we look at from all the stakeholders. When I speak quality, it involves and includes the employee satisfaction. I can't have a process which trains my employee. This is one example I want to quote. This I observed when I visited the Toyota plant in Japan. In the car assembly plant, I observed in some assembly point, the table moves to the height of the operator. You know why it happens? It moves to the height of the operator so that the operator need not bend too much and strain himself. So he is not fatigued and he can work long hours. So that's employee satisfaction. The conducive work environment which promotes higher productivity, the happiness quotient of the employee is also a factor of quality. And when I am doing all of that, if I say my profitability dips, it's not acceptable. Today, as a function, what I drive, we do all of that, but importantly, how you optimally spend and reduce your cost or optimize your cost and increase your profitability is the important measure of the quality functions today. So these are some of the factors in today's context, what organizations look at to improve their competitiveness. I don't want to defer the Q&A to the end. If you have any questions at this point of time, can ask. I'll pause for 10 seconds. Okay, I hope no questions. I'll move on. This is slightly academic model. I just want to take you through, but it is very important and very powerful. This is slightly older version. This model we have been using, and even today it is very relevant, called the Kano model. Why when I said that the quality is dynamic, this model explains that. If you look at this model, there are three different lines. There is one blue line, and there are two curves above and below the blue curve. The curve called must be is what I expect a service. If that is not delivered to me, I will not take the product or service. Say, for example, you go and order for a cup of coffee in a restaurant. If the coffee is not delivered to you hot, and if it is not reasonably tasty, because taste is a perception, you don't go to the hotel or the restaurant again. That's a must be quality for me. And satisfier, see, I go to a restaurant, I again order for the same cup of coffee, and the price today is 10 rupees. So I get satisfied. I'm okay with the price for the taste and the quantity of coffee which I get. And tomorrow I reduce it by 8. I'm happy. Or if the quantity I increase, instead of a mini coffee, I give a full cup of coffee, I'm happy. So the more I give, better I'm satisfied. The delater is all of a sudden I offer a masala vada, so which I don't even expect. I give and I order for a cup of coffee, I get a cup of coffee plus a masala vada. I am delighted. But the problem is, if I give a masala vada and coffee, when I order a cup of coffee, the next time when I go and if I stop masala vada, that becomes dissatisfaction. The delater over a period of time becomes a must be. So the whole thing is very, very dynamic. See, today I checked into a hotel, and the hotel receptionist greets by name by looking at my the frequently used card, and without even asking me, I get my preferred room. That's the delighter today when I first time when I go to the restaurant. But the second time when I go, if I don't get that kind of a service, then I get dissatisfied. Then that the second time, the delater, which was in the first time when the delater factor becomes a must be factor in the second visit. And hence, so please, when you identify the factors which are delaters, must be, and satisfiers, it is very, very dynamic. At 8 rupees, you can satisfy your customer today, but at the same 8 rupees tomorrow, you cannot satisfy your customers. In many industries, automobile, IT, or many industries, the cost the customers are willing to pay is not going up every year. It comes down. People want you to work on something and bring down the cost. When the customers want you to bring down the cost and increase the satisfaction, it is not at the cost of just you go and reduce your cost and take a hit on your profit. It is through how you drive your initiatives, transformation, how you run your value engineering in the organization, and improve your operational efficiency, and thereby you pass on the benefit to the customer. That's in a nutshell Kano model. I again pause for 5 seconds. If there are any questions, I'll take on. Okay. The next one, this is again a model. My intent is not to go through several models, but these two models, I thought it is very important uh, to strengthen my point why quality is very dynamic and it is not isolated uh, event or isolated initiative in the organization. This Professor Suda is again a quality guru uh, who used to visit us when I was in automotive industry. He used to consult several of the Indian companies. He is very famous in the automotive circles and in the quality circles. This is his famous model, and this model, the intent behind this model is it says the quality is not the function of set of small function small people in the organization. It has to be across. In the previous model I said, when I want to reduce my cost, I have to do some transformational thing. How do I do a transformational thing? I have to change something, I have to do something innovatively and bring the cost down. So who will do that? Can I hire somebody who will always sit in a place corner and think what I can do strategically? No, everybody has to do that. When I am saying everybody, in the entire pyramid, top to bottom, everybody have to. If you look at on the left hand side of the frame, you can see the hierarchy from the bottom of the pyramid to the top. At the top of the pyramid, you have the chief executive, and in the bottom of the pyramid, you have the operator. So operators are large in numbers, as you can imagine. Uh, so operator job is not just coming to the factory and just producing day in and day out, or in a service industry, in the bank, the cashier or the people in the counter, or today the banks are operating in a front office, back office mode. Most banks, the private banks, have a back office model. It is not the back office associate just come and then do the transaction and go. uh, at that level also they need to spend some time. You can see uh, the curve. This curve, the large part of this curve is what your the BAU work, business as usual work. But this part within the two curve is the improvement part. So the operator will have to spend roughly 10-15% of his time on the improvement, another 5% on the breakthrough improvement, which is transformationally high. As the hierarchy goes up, they need to spend less time on the BAU, which is business as usual, and spend more time on the breakthrough, which means the chief executive job is spending more time on breakthrough and how we can enable all this. So this is a very powerful model. If you understand this, this is a very key foundation when I frame my strategy for quality or transformation. So normally, I'll give you some idea how this is done in the organization. There are various means in which the people are pulled into thinking the improvement and breakthrough. So there has to be an incentive and there has to be a strong change management for that. People drive uh, the suggestion schemes, very famous in manufacturing as well as in the service. They incentivize the suggestion schemes. And Kaizen is another framework. Quality Circle is another framework. These are framework through which you bring people to enable people to think improvement and to think their breakthroughs. There are various other frameworks, some of which I'll cover as we progress. I'll move on to the next slide. Here I'll briefly touch upon how in India, how the quality strategy evolved. This I just put together what I have seen in the last 2 decades, and it's not from any textbook, but you can argue on this, and people may have different views. It's not a comprehensive list of things what happened, but at a high level, what I observed is what I try to put here. Uh, See, sometime back, the focus was only on inspection-led quality, how I can do more and more robust inspection to get my quality. So when I started as a GET, every day, the entire plant people used to assemble in a scrap yard, and we used to just inspect the inspected product. The products are already inspected. They will again do a second level of inspection to see why this has happened, what is the root cause, how I can go and fix it, or how I can make the inspection a little more robust. So it was completely inspection led strategy. And then people started thinking about the COPQ, which is the cost of poor quality or the cost of quality. Remember, I spoke about the Phil Crosby. The people realized the quality has a cost and started reporting. It used to be one of the key MIS to the management. In fact, I used to present to our chairman those days one slide on the cost of quality every month in the monthly review meetings. But today, slowly, people have away because people have built in all that in through IT enabled systems. When people speak about cost of quality, they used to factor all the cost, all the failure cost, all the appraisal cost, which is the inspection cost, and all the prevention cost. There are various investments the companies do. For example, I invest in calibration, I invest in training. So they capture all of that. You get actually the finance data and get the cost of quality reported. And then they focused on the measurement system capability, how I can improve my measurement system, how I can improve my calibrations against higher set of standards, how I can bring measurement equipment with higher resolutions, how I can bring the digital measurement equipment. So people started focusing on that. People started focusing on product certifications and all that. From there, the shift happened with the process control. When I'm saying process control, the process control was always there, right? The no process control situation was several decades back, but at least in the last 2-3 decades, we always had process controls, but it evolved. It evolved at every stage of a process where the input happens to the final product. People started putting controls. If there is a temperature, then people started measuring the temperature, putting the calibration on the temperature, started deploying the control chart. Inspection replaced with the control chart. If you might have, I think it is there in your curriculum also. Control charts are used to be very powerful tool. Even today, replaces completely the inspection. Instead of I inspect 10%, 20%, or 100% of the component, I do every hour few samples because my process is set, my process capabilities are established. So I do a sample check using my control chart, and I enable the operator, not the inspector or not somebody else. I enable the line function to take the corrective action and then and there. That's a major shift. Prior to that, it used to be a staff function. Some separate inspection department used to inspect. Now that got shifted to the line function. The maker himself inspects using all these enablers. And when I do that, I also parallelly started thinking of how I do a cost reduction, how I do my improvement on the process. When I measure the process, you improve the process. This is what we observe. So in the transformation function, which I do manage today. The very important thing is when customers comes to us, many of them don't know how the process is performing today, how everything's are done today. You don't have a measurement around it. The moment you build a measurement around it, then you get a lot of data. When you get a lot of data, then you know where to improve. That's the foundation. Then from there, I just use the word total quality management. That is little more comprehensive than you bring in a lot more components into that. You look at design quality. So people start looking at thorough design FMEA and thorough design concepts, how I can improve or deploy my reliability concepts to improve the product or service reliability, and how I can build systems. When I talk about systems, how I choose my vendor, how I evaluate my vendor, how I manage my measurement systems, how I manage my standard rooms, or in a service industry, how I do my hiring. It's very important. How I manage my hiring quality, how I do my training, how I qualify. You see, I take somebody from the bank, say for managing the fraud and AML. So how I should qualify the anti-money laundering function, how I can enable the person, how I can give them case studies so that they are better equipped to do the investigations. It's all systems. So systems and adoption of industry-specific certifications. This again evolved in the last 2 decades. There are many industry-specific certifications. When I started my automotive career, the QS 9000 certification came, joint initiative by those big three, Ford, General Motor, and Chrysler, and then later replaced by TS 16949. And similarly, there are many industry certifications: TL 9000 for telecom, AS for aerospace, CMMI for IT industries. There are many industry specific certifications which gives better practices, industry specific practices, which the organization can leverage, and they don't need to reinvent the wheel to get those practices. They can adopt those practices from these industry specific certifications. And adoption of quality practice from the East, I mentioned it here because um, at one point in time, the Indian companies adopted and blindly adopted also, I would put it, many practices from the East, particularly from the Japan. And today it is, the reverse also happens. There are many consultants flying from India to various parts of the world. And the Indian consultants are also in demand across the globe. There are several of my friends doing today the consulting in different parts of the world. Uh, I'll move on to the next slide. Any questions so far? Okay. Uh, the previous slide we spoke about the journey so far and what is happening today. That's what I want to cover in the slide. It's not completely we forget the basics and start everything from scratch every time. No, it is evolution. We carry forward some of those things and we adopt some of the new things. The Toyota production system, which I subsequent slide. Design thinking. This is again a very popular concept picking up today. Here I look at the customer journey and try to reimagine the customer journey and try to design my product or service completely with out of the box thinking perspective. So anybody who are having the uh, aspiration on entrepreneurship, please look at this design thinking. I will also at the end speak about the career parts. At that time also I will touch upon some of these things. So design thinking is one very well adopted concept in a startup environment. The TQM, TPM, the total quality management and total productive maintenance are very specific to that in the manufacturing industry and very widely adopted, successfully adopted There are several Indian companies, the TVS group of companies, Mahindra and Mahindra, and there are several companies won the TQM Deming Award, very um, uh, well sought after award in the quality world across the globe, and even the TPM awards. There are several Indian companies have already won these awards. The EFQM and Malcolm Baldrige MBNQ is a Malcolm Baldrige award. Is not a standard. It is a assessment framework, a comprehensive assessment framework, uh, touching upon all aspects of the business. uh, when I speak all aspects of the business, it talks about the results. How do I perform on various parameters financially, employee satisfaction, customer satisfaction? How do I uh, fare on my commitment towards CSR initiatives? How do I contribute back to my society? How do I contribute to the sustainability, environment factors, all that? And when it comes to the enablers, I look at how do I manage my people, how do I manage my process, how do I manage my technology. So I look at all the components very comprehensively and assess the organizations, and based on the assessment I put my strategy. There are in Tata Group, the Malcolm Baldrige is adopted framework, and every Tata Group goes through the Malcolm Baldrige assessment, and that's very closely monitored by the management, how the individual units are scoring on the Malcolm Baldrige assessment, and they use it for the strategy, formulating the strategy. And there are many Indian companies have adopted the EFQM assessment model for understanding where they are and how they should formulate their strategy. The analytics is again a very important lever today. I mentioned in the previous slide the data is very important. When I'm saying data is very important, now I go one step above. I get more data, I get large sum of data, and I use the data to predict my customer behavior. I use the data to predict my employees. I use the data to predict the market. That's what I use for analytics. I'll give some of the example. Today, you go to a bank. You go to a bank and you do a transaction. You go to a website and you do something, and you go to any social media site, you do something. Whatever you do, nothing is private. Everything is captured. In fact, when you go to a bank site and when you do try to do some transaction, you may not even complete the transaction and you may come out. Banks have the capability today to understand what you tried to do and what you have done or what you have not done. Based on that, they formulate a strategy. So if the customer try to open an account and if the customer is dropping, which means they are seeing that as a lost opportunity, and they use this information. Why at what point in time customer is dropping, and they use that information to reformulate their strategy. And when you go to a site, say for example, you try to open some hotel site, or you search something in the web on your vacation program, you immediately start getting a lot of pop-ups on the hotels, the site where you want to visit. It's all analytics in the back, which the companies are leveraging to formulate or to attract the customers, and to also use the data to formulate their strategy. So digitization. So digitization is another key. It's more of service enabler in the service industry, which I use to enable my customers to do many things on their own. Say, for example, I go to a bank. I want to know what is my account balance. When I first started doing the transactions in the bank, if I want to know my account balance, I need to go and make a entry, wait in the queue for long, make a entry in my passbook. Only then I get to know my account balance. Today, if I want to know my account balance, I get it by a click of a button. Or if I want a statement, I get it by a click of a button. I don't even go to anybody. It is a self-service option given to the customers. People deflect. People don't want to spend by doing the transaction which the customers can do by themselves and get the service very quickly. That is the fundamental of the digitization. You go to a bank, you call a call center, you get various options, the IVR 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all that. Why they do all that? They want to deflect the call going and landing in a call agent. And you get the answer. I think somebody wants to ask a question. I'll complete the slide and then you can ask the question. They do all that because they want to give the option to the customer so that they can get the information by themselves without even landing with the call agent or going to the bank. That is the strategy most banks have adopted. They enable today many things which the customer can do by themselves, or customer can at least complete the first few stages of the transaction digitally. Agile also I'll park it. I'll cover slightly later if time permits. The cognitive and automation. The cognitive and automation is a buzzword today. People try to use this buzzword for everything. They use the word cognitive, but it's still evolving and fast catching up. And in future, you will see in many more places. Just I'll give some example of where cognitive and automations are used. Again, mostly this is applicable both in manufacturing and service. I'll give a service example. Today, this is the area where I'm working on. The cognitive enables the machine to learn certain things by themselves. Say, for example, I do a transactions, I do a reconciliation, and I don't get the reconciliation done properly. Basically, I try to match two different accounts. I don't get that right. So what I do, I reach out to people, I do my investigation, and then I complete my reconciliation. But when I go for a cognitive implementation there, the machine starts understanding what I do, what investigation I have done, what research I have done, how I did that. The machine uses that information, and next time when that comes, it is not giving to the human, it does by itself. Say, for example, I get 100 documents. I classify the documents into 10 different buckets. I can set a rule. I can do automation by saying, if this is the title of the document, put it in this bucket, in this bucket, this bucket. That is one way. And if that is very unstructured and people have written and with multiple different verbatim, you can't do it. Human intervention is needed. But with cognitive, you can do even that. So I can train the machine over a period of time. The next time with the training, the machine can do on its own. I stop here. If you want to know any other bucket in this slide, you can ask. And you can unmute for Gugan. He wants to ask a question. Any questions? Okay, I think I'll move on. This is a lot of text in this slide, but I thought I will use this. Here I'm now talking about the next 5 minutes. I'll talk about the Toyota production system, and then remaining 5 minutes or 5 to 7 minutes I'll speak about Toyota production system, and the rest we'll have for question and answer. The Toyota production system, the foundation is based on these 14 principles. In fact, at one point in time, it used to be a black box, and people did not know what was happening in the Toyota factory. And few researchers spent several years within the factory and formulated these 14 principles. Toyota did not give these 14 principles, but they understood this is what worked well in Toyota, and hence they summarized these into 14 principles. I will touch upon a few things here and there, and then we'll move on. The first principle is base your management decisions on a long-term philosophy and not on short-term financial goals. This is very, very important, even in today's context. When you formulate your strategy, what are you looking at? Are you looking at how much cash flow is going out today? What is my immediate benefit? Am I looking at that, or what I want to do in the long run? What is the purpose of my organization? What is the commitment I made to my customers? Am I doing the right investment today? So basically, it is asking the organizations not to hesitate to make the investment today, keeping in the long-term purpose and long-term vision of the organization. Create continuous flow is something. Here I'll spend few minutes. See, before the Toyota production system, the Ford production system, which I mentioned in the beginning, is based on the batch production system, which means I get all my machines in with the same process together in big quantity. For example, if I want all press components together, all rough machining machines together, and then I do the first stage of the machining in several hundreds of numbers, and I do the mass production without even knowing what the next stage person wants, or what, how much number, the which I may produce more plant. I don't look at all that, and I just do based on my capacity. I don't look at the demand. I changed with the Toyota production system. They introduced something called a single piece flow, continuous flow. Within continuous flow, they introduced something called single piece flow, which means uh, the one component moves at a time, and that component movement and the production target is based on something called TAKT, TACT, which is a German word, that is purely based on the demand. Right from customer order to delivery, everything is aligned. It is order to delivery. So I align and design my process based on that. And they used extensively visual controls on the floor. The if you go to a plant, you don't need to ask any information. The Kanban boards on the floor tells you how much inventory is in hand, what is going on. You don't need to ask a supervisor what is going on in the process, how many people are present, what is today's production. Everything you get it on the floor by looking at those boards. See, the visualization is to the extent, say, when I looked at some of the plants, a large plant, they used to have the multi-mission concept, the same operator operating multi-missions. The operator plots the control chart, he manages everything by himself. We don't even look at anybody for anything. He's self-organized and he manages by himself or herself. And only when there is a demand or when he's in a problem where he needs a support from the supervisor, and he just presses the button, and there is something called ambient light glows, and the supervisor rushes, and he is equipped and he is empowered to take the action to fix the problem. So the entire thing is highly visual. It's not sending notes, sending emails. It doesn't work that way. So considering the time, I just skip. One thing I want to touch upon in the last philosophy, the Kaizen. The Kaizen is a continuous incremental improvement. The participation of the Kaizen is very, very high. Even today, if you go to Japan, if you have 100 people, all the 100 people would have given at least one idea in a year. Uh, this is very well adopted in India. There are companies and even in manufacturing service, they use different words. Many of them, they don't use the word Kaizen. They have their own brand name to that. But basically, it's all from Kaizen. Kai means continuous, Zen means improvement. It's all originated from Japan, and we adopted with a different brand name and different format. Basically, to promote the employee involvement in the improvement journey. I spent some time on this slide and then I'll close for question and answer. The Toyota production system is based on this framework. It's called TPS house. If you look at the TPS house on the left hand side, you can see just in time. Just in time, as I mentioned before, they didn't want to have inventory. They have very high inventory turnover, which means they turn over the inventory several times compared to their sales. This is enabled by the just-in-time concepts. Just-in-time is not just one component. There are several supporting systems which enable the just-in-time. Basically, you get the component on time for the assembly. You don't build the inventory. So Japanese companies don't build the inventory. In fact, when we were in Japan visiting the Japanese plant, they told, this is long back, they told, uh, uh, we were asking with our Indian mindset how this can happen. They told in 10 years, they were showing statistics, how many times the components didn't come on time. For each of those incidents, they took a very serious action, which means they didn't have any instance of component not arriving on time and assembly stoppage. You can imagine assembly stoppage if for 10 minutes you'll have several hundred cars not coming out. To that extent, uh, the loss happens to the company. In the top, you can see this is the success factors: best quality, low cost, and short lead time, best safety, and high morale. So these are the success factors Toyota identified. Uh, uh, this changes company to company, but for Toyota, this is the enablers are those. Jidoka is what I was talking about some time ago. How I manage my built-in quality, the Andon lights, which I mentioned, the 5 eyes, all of that are part of that. The stable process is about how I standardize the work. The standardization is very, very important. I take 1 minute to explain that the Hygienka and standardization of work, be it a service industry or manufacturing, is both the standardization and the level of production is important. Am I loading one process or somebody more with a workload? How do I have a equal workload? It's a very easy to say, but how do you manage in a large setup? When several thousand operators are working, several hundred machines are there, how do I do that? Unless I have a robust system, it will not work. That is what they call it as Hygienka. It's a very, very important foundation. Thereby, their utilization is at optimum level. No inventory, both in WIP, work in progress, and in the finished good stage. That's how they effectively managed. I stop here. I'm not going to the other slides. We have another 3-4 minutes if you all want to ask some questions.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
What kind of a quality management system we need to focus to implement a system supporting healthcare applications?
Okay, I'm not an expert on the healthcare, but I did some research long back, but I don't know what happened today. Uh, there are healthcare specific standards available, and the hospitals also do adopt the ISO standards. But ISO standards will give you some basic framework, but it will not be industry specific standard. But there are industry specific standard for healthcare available. I'm not an expert on healthcare.
Okay, sir, thank you. And we have one more question
Yeah.
from the participants. He is going to start a business. So initially, what kind of a tool he need to concentrate on and implement the tools to improve his standards on quality?
Okay. As I mentioned, it will be not a good idea to start with a tool. Tools comes later, but before tools, you need to identify a few things: your purpose, your vision, and what are your success factors. The slide which is open, the Toyota production system, on top you see best quality, low cost, short lead time. The just in time is basically from short lead time, and safety and moral. They identified these as differentiating factors. So you need to identify the differentiating factors. And once you identify the differentiating factors, then the tools comes. That you pick the tool depending on your differentiating factors. But you don't start with a tool.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Um, any more questions from the participants? Fine, we don't have any questions, sir. So shall we end up now?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thanks
Yeah,
for patient listening. Thank you
yeah.
all.
Um, I thank the management for giving us the opportunity to conduct the webinar. And I thank you for your valuable speech, sir, regarding the strategies which we need to focus on for marketing our products. I hope this will be useful for the students when they are converting their projects into products. And I thank all the participants for joining up the webinar. Thank you all.